What an extraordinary individual this man is. He has been fighting the good fight for so long, for decades. And it seems like whenever there is a significant case where the little guy is going up against the government or against the corporation, Danny's the one representing people. And he's been doing it a long, long time. Kieran Silkwood and Pentagon Papers way back, and Standing Rock, and of course what we're going to be primarily talking about now with Lou Elizondo.
Lou Elizondo has spent the last 4 years publicly claiming he was in charge of chasing UFOs for the Pentagon's ATIP program. In May 2019, spokesperson Chris Sherwood denied Elizondo was involved with the UFO program, telling the Post, quote, "Mr. Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to the ATIP program." Spokesperson Susan Goff took up the reins. Elizondo did not have any assigned responsibilities for ATIP.
If the Pentagon continues on that line of narrative, will probably be a big mistake for them. There's enough people now in the Pentagon and on the Hill that know exactly who I was and what I did. And, it's going to continue to hurt their credibility. These assigned duties were coming from the legislative branch.
And former Senator Harry Reid supports this claim. Reid recently released a signed statement confirming Elizondo's role investigating UFOs while at the Pentagon. Quote, "Mr. Elizondo has spent his career working tirelessly in the shadows on sensitive national security matters, including investigating UAPs as the head of ATIP. He performed these duties admirably." Documents obtained by the Post show that Lou Elizondo himself filed a complaint against the Pentagon on May 3rd. In the complaint, Elizondo provides documented proof of his involvement in the UFO program and alleges some inside the Pentagon are actively trying to publicly discredit him. Regarding why he alleges some in the Pentagon are trying to publicly discredit him, Elizondo told the Post that UFOs are a thorn in the side of many inside the DoD because they haven't been able to figure out what they are, much less come up with a solution on how to deal with them.
It is a thorn in their side because they don't have a solution. And that's a problem. When you are in the role of national security, you are paid to have solutions and offer solutions, not problems. And we don't have any solutions yet. And so it is a sticky situation. It is a thorn in the side of many people. I had to pay personally the consequences of that. I had some people in the government that did not like me coming out and having this conversation. And they went after me. And they are continuing to try to cause problems for me.
So he contacted me in that capacity, knowing full well who I was and what my objectives were. And so we had a series of meetings, and he was satisfied that I should represent him. And so we launched a counterattack against the Pentagon and prepared a major complaint against the people inside the Pentagon and the Defense Department, arguing that they were lying.
Danny, would you mind, you and Steve have known each other for years. Mm-hmm. And in fact, you were part of Steve's Citizens Hearing for Disclosure back in 2013. Why don't you share with our audience how you met Steve and how you've worked together in the past, and then introduce him?
Wow, yeah. Well, see, Steve and I have been working together since the dawn of time. When Stephen first arrived back in Washington, D.C., he and I were together. We, in fact, went out and helped unload his car when he was setting up his first office there outside Washington, D.C., to just come in and say, look, somebody in the UFO community has to take responsibility for keeping both feet on the ground and talking with representatives and their staff and coming to grips with the real world, which is functioning at a fairly low frequency, in the realm of political reality in Washington, D.C., and work constantly to get the Congress to come forward, to have hearings, to call witnesses, to present to the people of the United States and the world the information that they can get from the executive branch to try to present this. So Stephen has been laboring in the vineyard in Washington, D.C. for it's probably 30 years now. And he knows the exact dates of this, but I remember, and I said, look at bless Stephen Bassett, because he's doing this job. Other people are doing different things, having contact experiences, holding conferences, reaching out to people in the executive branch and having meetings, and Steve has been focused on trying to do everything that he can to get the executive branch to come forward with important information that we're all certain that they have, utilizing the authority of the legislature. Because after all, it is in fact the Senate and the House of Representatives that really constitutes the heart of the government of our country. They are the Article 1 power of our government. The President of the United States and the executive branch is set forth in Article 2. And there's been some tension historically from a constitutional point of view between the two branches, because the executive branch has a tendency over time to start to develop a certain sort of bureaucratic imperative where they mistakenly come to perceive themselves as the government. And they tend to not respond as effectively as they should to the legislature. And sometimes the legislature itself tends to yield up authority to the executive branch and kind of minimizes their kind of authority. So this has been the realm of Stephen Bassett for almost 30 years now, at least, and has been working, and everybody in the UFO community. When you think about Washington, D.C. and trying to deal with this, the legislative branch of government and getting hearings by the United States government, turn to Stephen Bassett to find out what the present status is, what the communications are with any of the people on the staff, how long it's going to be before we're going to be able to get them to have hearings. And the reality is that Stephen has the best insight of anybody in the UFO community right now about how this looks from the point of view of the legislature and from the Congress of the United States. How are they responding to for example, Lou Elizondo resigning in public protest as the head of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Project, the United States Pentagon, coming forward along with Chris Mellon in reaching out to the New York Times and publishing the previously secret gun camera photos and video of real live UFOs, pushing the issue to get the executive branch to come forward and start making acknowledgments about the reality of the UFOs. So there's been this extraordinary process that's been going on, and Stephen will talk to us all about it here. That's been going on since December of 2017, actually a little bit before that, in October of 2017, with the coming forth of people joining the To the Stars Academy, a number of people from the inside of the intelligence community and national security state bureaucracy coming forward to form a group that was intending to try to push this process forward, and it resulting in the front page coverage of the New York Times. Most recently now generating coverage by 60 Minutes of a full interview with not only Lou Elizondo as the director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Project inside the Defense Department, but also with Chris Mellon, who was the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, both under President Clinton and under George W. Bush. And now the progress is being made with the work that everybody has been doing to try to move this process forward. We now have these government officials from previously within the executive branch itself making statements that denying that these vehicles can possibly be from the Soviet Union or from China. We have the pressure they're putting on to the executive branch and the Defense Department to actually stating that these are not ours. The vast majority of these instances are not ours. Whatever the weight might be put on the negative pregnant, that some of them conceivably could be perceived as UFOs, that may be some technology of ours. But the bottom line is we're in an extraordinarily important period. And Stephen has a unique perspective to bring to the community, talking about these efforts that we're talking about generating citizen diplomacy, to reach out and try to establish direct citizen-to-citizen contact with the extraterrestrials. Stephen has invested extraordinary amounts of time into trying to make the government structures work to perform their constitutional duty, both the legislative branch in the House and Senate and in the executive branch. And so he wants to sound, I think, a constructive and affectionate note within the community to be careful here, to not do things that might interfere with the ongoing process that he's been working at for years, I think, to get this thing to happen within the constitutional government structures. And so that I want to, from the perspective where I am, of having been legal counsel, for the Disclosure Project, legal counsel with Stephen in the citizens' hearings, and now legal counsel for Lou Elizondo in his internal communications with the Defense Department, trying to get more information out of them. I want to be the one to endorse and support what it is Stephen is doing from his perspective, and encourage him and give him every opportunity possible to communicate his perspective to all of us as we're going forward with this process. So with all of that said, here he is, the man himself, Steve Bassett.
Thanks, Danny. Let me put it this way. There have been efforts to resolve this issue going all the way back to 1950, 51, a couple of years before enough sightings had occurred and things started to get cooking, all the way back to Donald Keogh, which is, I think, the first true activist. And they continued. But simple truth was, for the first 44 years from 47 to 91, there was no chance. There was simply no chance. Whatever you did, whatever you could come up with, no matter who you were, not going to happen. That changed when the Cold War ended. Because, and the reason I say this is because the nuclear issue, the nuclear threat, the mutual assured destruction, was a pretty potent issue, and the national security state was not going to defer on that. In other words, they were going to defend the country and prevent whatever could come from that. And anything else that might interfere, forget about it. Okay, that changed in 91. I entered the field in 96. So I was 6 years in. So that, first of all, that was a good thing, because the worst was over and the doors maybe could start opening. But I neglected to do something prior to that, and that was to get rich. I was terribly bad at making money. I mean, just awful. It was really kind of sad. So I entered the field with virtually no resources at all. So what are you going to do? But I had one thing in favor of my particular approach. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody had, really. I realized right away there was no lobbyist that had ever registered on the subject. Okay, I'll be the first one. No political action had been set up. I'll be the first one. Nobody had done an exopolitics conference. I did the first, I think, the first formal one, and then one in Washington. So in other words, I had nobody in the field. I was just running up and down the field with nobody tackling me. It was great. Again, that doesn't mean major things are going to happen. It just means that is an angle that you have. And it worked because the lobbying registration attracted the attention of the Washington Post. They came out, gave me a wonderful interview. They put on a big article on the front page of the business section where all the rich people go. Unfortunately, it had a huge photo, and it's the worst photo ever taken of me. I won't even show it to you, but you could find it if you look hard enough. One day I'll bring it out just to show you how well I've done since. And that was it. that was a credibility marker. But believe me, I had no illusions that I'm going to just go downtown and talk to a bunch of people on the hill. Before you know it, I'll panic. No. But I like journalism. I like journalists. And I knew that when I entered the field in 96, that journalism was the key to activism. In other words, but Gandhi knew that. The movement to get rid of the British really got going when Life magazine turned up with some photographers who started taking photos of things and putting them on all around the world. And people are going, wow, what's going on there? And before you know it, well, and it's happened in other ways. So you get the journalist on an issue, they publish articles, that gets the attention of the public and the members of Congress and their staff, and they go, something going on here, we should look into that. And so I focused on the media. I've generated hundreds of stories regarding this issue. I've been in 170 or 8. No, I've been in 500. I'm at 550. I'm mentioned or PRGs at 550 stories. You would think, well, hell, that'll get you on 60 Minutes. Well, no, not yet, but we'll see. Anyway, that's the path I took. I did what I could. And during those years, plenty of other people were doing stuff, again, trying to push us towards a breakthrough that would lead to an appropriate engagement. Stephen Greer did tons of stuff. And other activists have turned up. And the conferences and the websites, the podcast, all of this isn't just because people needed a hobby. They're trying to get a message out there. And who is the target of that message? The American people, the American press, and Congress. But yet, by 2016, we had not made it yet. But it looked very promising. And then it took a nasty turn. Okay. And then in October of 2017, we had the breakthrough we had been waiting for since 1947. And that breakthrough took place over a period of 65 days. The launch of the TTSA, the announcement of the website, and the resumes of the team, the delivery of the information to the New York Times to be vetted for articles, and the 2 published articles on the front page, December 16th.
And that's the To the Stars Academy for a lot of people that may not know the TTSA.
TTSA, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science.
Yep.
So why was that the breakthrough? It was the combination of 2 things. One, it was the fact that the team was clearly coming. It was a team that was completely careered in the military intelligence complex, stepped out into a private organization, and there was no indication that it was, as far as we could tell, a formal program at all. It was essentially a privately engineered project, and that meant that there was a growing group within the military intelligence complex that finally had decided it's time to end the truth embargo. But we can't do it. I mean, it's what? I'm a CIA person and I'm working at the CIA. What am I going to do? Launch a personal program to end the truth embargo? I'd be closed down in 20 minutes. No, we can't do that while working within the MIC. But what if we weren't working for the MIC anymore and we were part of an organization? We pulled our resources and
that's the military intelligence
intelligence
community.
Complex.
Right.
That's
right. But there's different people at different levels here. We're just getting everybody keeping up on board here.
So this was a breakthrough. In other words, I said it right away in an interview. I said, for the first time since this began, the disclosure movement, it had come to be called capital D disclosure movement. The disclosure movement, which included a capital D disclosure event, my contribution. Greer starts the disclosure movement. I added a capital D, created an event, made it the prize for the activist movement, was being led by the military intelligence complex by proxy. Now that was a big deal. And every one of those resumes and that website was a clear message. Something has happened. And then the second thing was the New York Times articles, that they took the info, vetted the info, published the info on the front page, put a double Pulitzer Prize winner as one of the writers, along with Leslie Kean, obviously deserving of that honor, and Helene Cooper, one of their top military and writers in that area. She's really quite credentialed. They couldn't have given it more gravitas. And you saw what happened. Immediately, things started emerging very fast. Massive news coverage. We've now reached 1,000 articles related to the TTSA's launch and the subsequent events related to that. 1,000 articles. They're on my website. You can go read them all if you got some time. That was the game changer. That penetrated, right? Now, it would have had an explosive result, except that it ended up having to emerge during a very complex and unusual time. The political climate was unprecedented in the modern era, might have been unprecedented in the entire life of the Republic, who knows? And so it made it much more difficult to pursue the agenda that they chose, that I believe was a key agenda. To their great credit.
And these are the whole Trump administration plus the pandemic all coming together to be this unique, extraordinary series of events that took place coterminous with what's happening here. I'm sorry.
Even before the pandemic, to making the decision to go forward in October of 2017 into the storm, into the hurricane, was a bold decision, which history will reward greatly. They didn't know a pandemic was coming. Right. So they're trying to get through these years because the situation was not what they'd expected. And then as things look like they may be getting better, in comes the worst pandemic in 100 years. Look, all I can say is every one of them should get the Medal of Freedom as far as I'm concerned. All right. So eventually the political situation settles down. The pandemic at least starts to become manageable and things start moving again. And now they're picking up speed. And so what I have stated repeatedly, and I'll state very quickly now, is that the ultimate goal of that group, aside from their other interests and possibilities, and they had unlimited possibilities depending upon how much money they raised, was to end the truth embargo and to do it by getting congressional hearings. That was the specific agenda, particularly of two key people, Louis Elizondo and Chris Mellon. And in due course, we literally see them putting the pieces together so those hearings could take place, though it wasn't obvious to everyone. And by and large, it all came together pretty well. And where it was going to go, of course, was unpredictable, but they had set the stage. Who would step up on that stage? Well, the person that stepped on the stage to finally take it to the next level was Marco Rubio. Unexpected. He did something bold and right. He put language in the appropriations bill saying, let's get a report. Let's get some information back from the agencies. He wasn't demanding they drag the Roswell crash vehicle into the Senate committee room and bring the bodies along. No. They were trying to get an update, an analysis of what's going on. In other words, he offered up to the DOD the opportunity to be helpful, right? Which would be a good look for the DOD. He put a deadline on it. Brilliant, right? 180 days from the signing of the bill, knowing the bill would be signed for months. It was signed in December, which meant the deadline was June 25. But understand, the language was published in July. And so the DOD had a full year to think about how would we respond to this? What will we do? And you see, the DOD is very good at gaming complex situations. That's one of the key things they're supposed to do. And so I assure you, they game this to death. And so anything that happened after that was going to be strategic. And a lot of people couldn't see it that way. They would go, well, this happened, I don't know what's going on. That happened, I don't know what's going on. They couldn't look at the larger picture and see the strategy that was unfolding. And so what followed after that is very predictable. You give the media a specific date on a specific event, and that is an easy story. And they have written articles by the scores, articles, maybe 200-300, related to this report, right? Worldwide articles, by the way. This report is coming, got a deadline, could be this, could be that. Fantastic. Got Rubio a lot of press too, which I think he probably enjoyed getting. So they put it in play. Okay. Things went relatively slow again. We have a pandemic, but that didn't affect the government's, the DOD's actions. And what the DOD chose to do, as I see it, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me or correct me later on, is this. Here's the strategy of the DOD. First, okay, we're going to put something together, classified and unclassified. before we put the classified report into the hands of the Congress, we're going to leak to the New York Times about 2 weeks ahead of time what's in the unclassified report, what the public might get, right? Smart move. New York Times publishes that, generates a lot of interest, but it focuses it on the public report, the public report. That's not where the DOD wanted focused. I mean, that's where the DOD wanted it focused, not on the classified report, which was the report. And so people are waiting for the public report. Meanwhile, 13 days later, they deliver the classified report to the 4 key committees and give them a briefing. But there's not a lot of attention put on it, right? Everybody's waiting for the public report. But it's the classified report that matters in terms of hearings. And so then the Congress, all these members of Congress have, I think it was another 16 days to look at it, consider it, and what have you, and 14 days. And then the public report comes out, and it's massively disappointing. Not to me, not at all. You see, the DOD doesn't want to give anything to the public, not for nefarious reasons per se in this case, but giving any hard, solid, big, broad information to the public is going to create all kinds of issues. And worse, it's going to create issues for the Congress and the members in Congress on the committees. And so that's not something they want to do. They want to give it to the Congress, and the Congress will decide what we see and hear. The Congress will decide about hearings, and the DOD can step back, which is exactly what they should do, because the DOD's prerogative is not to bring this information to us directly or to disclose directly. Absolutely not. That is the president's prerogative. They want to be in that game. And so you give it to Congress. But they had to put something to the public because there was a date. It was like, Rubio wanted some public stuff. And so we got to give them something, right? We can't just give them a note and say, look, no, we decided just to go classified only. That wasn't going to fly. So they come up with 6 pages of classic DOD speak and a lot of acronyms. And the 2 key points they leaked to the New York Times back in the 3rd of June. So people are going, oh, yeah, that's what they said would come out. Then Rubio and Christopher Mellon gave us supportive statements about, okay, well, that's good. Glad to have that. It wasn't a lot, but and so forth, which is appropriate, right? They could have shot it down. I was a little concerned that they gave those statements, but now I realize it was strategically wise. And then, coincidentally, the Senate went directly into recess the day after that report, and it will return from recess on Monday. All right. And so in toto, these committees have had this classified information for 26 days to consider what to do about it. And of course, what to do about it is to have hearings. Now, there's already been, we think, 1 leak. Do you think the DOD was unhappy about that? No. If you've been in Washington a long time, you know that if you give 70 members of Congress some really significant, interesting information, unless it involves exactly where our nuclear submarine's on, it's going to leak. They wanted it to leak. Because you see, if it leaks from Congress, it's not coming from the DOD, is it? Right? Congress wants to leak, that's their prerogative. They represent the people. And it started to leak. Richard Dolan may have gotten a very significant report from the committee that was, I think it was transmitted verbally to a close confidant of Richard, who he trusts. That confidant wrote it down, hounded to Richard. He put it up on the internet in his last podcast. This, if it's a legitimate leak, is very, very significant. I hope you can find it. I can't have a page to share, but Richard Dolan, the podcast leak, whatever. And he puts it up on the screen. And in a few words, here's what is in that very possible leak from the briefing in one of those committees. They briefed them on all of the advanced propulsion systems presently under development by our government. Indicated that all of those propulsion system projects were being run under the aegis of DARPA and conducted by a group called, and managed by a group called Group 6. Okay, fine. It indicated that, yes, there were metamaterials, indicated in parentheses they were possibly ET related. And then they hit it with the key statement. And this key statement is very supportive. That's it. Hey, excellent. While I'm talking, feel free to read that. The key statement comes at the bottom, okay? In which they basically say, I can't actually read it because I've got some blocks there, but what they're saying is that we test these things, these propulsion systems are tested over the Nellis Air Force Range, right? And by the way, and they mention how it's funded. And these prototypes of flying crafts utilizing the above technology, which by the way includes number 3, anti-graviton propulsion system. They're saying, yeah, we were working on anti-gravitic propulsion system. That is not trivial. We think they actually made some anti-gravitics. They've actually made craft with anti-gravitic technology that they've either figured out on their own or re-engineered. They're basically saying, yeah, that's significant. That is not trivial at all, but it's not in the public report, is it? And then they say we tested these things over Nevada and people have maybe seen these things. However, here's the key statement. None of the experimental crafts have flown outside the Nellis test and training range. None of these experimental craft can be attributed to the sightings photographed by the U.S. Navy. Do you see how significant that is? They are telling the Congress the truth. Yes, we have advanced propulsion systems. Yes, people might have seen these operating, but we don't fly them outside the Nellis Air Force Range. We don't fly them over Arizona, right? We don't fly them around our aircraft carrier groups. And the technology we have is not represented by those sightings. This one leak alone, if it were addressed in hearings, would blow the truth embargo sky high. And there are 73 pages of this. And so you see, they're doing what they should do in a way they should do it. They're giving the Congress the ability to now move forward, hold the hearings, bring the witnesses in, get the military testimony to back this up, and hand the president the platform on which he can appropriately, correctly, and in a valid way end the truth embargo as the commander-in-chief and the United States president, which is the way it has to happen. Any other way is damaging, destructive, and probably absolutely stupid. It has to come from the president, preferably our president, but he's not the only president. And so my next call, for those of you placing bets with the new bookies in town, there's bookies everywhere now, it's taking over, is that when the Senate starts up again on Monday, count the days. If I'm Rubio or I am Warner, I cannot sit on this situation with that classified report known to us, the public knowing that we have it, with leaks coming out, and not say anything about hearings or come up with some statement. Well, maybe next year we'll revisit this. I don't think so. I'm expecting an announcement from Rubio or Warner this week, coming week, that at minimum, they are going to hold hearings. And if we're lucky, they will give a time frame. And if we're really lucky, that time frame will be soon. So let's see how that goes. I'm excited myself and ready to get involved in any way that I can. So
there is Steve Bassett's latest optimistic report about what's potentially going to be happening. There are people all throughout the UFO community with varying levels of information or sophistication about inexperience in dealing with these issues. And so there's a vibrant conversation going on inside the UFO community now about prognostications about whether there's going to be hearings, if so, when, how much of this classified annex is going to get ultimately leaked or released. You know, that Lou Elizondo has now stated that rather than there being 73 pages in this annex, there are 400 pages. That Lou has now stated that there's 400 pages in this annex. And that's a big load. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that's in this report. And my judgment is that Lou is in a position to really know what's in there. And so the process of all of the different citizens people who are outside of the Congress, people who are inside the Congress, people who are inside the executive branch, people who are outside the executive branch, people who are journalists, investigative journalists, other people who are in the media, anchor people and stuff. There's all kinds of people in our human community now that are involved in this conversation. And there are scientists who, up until just in the last year or two, felt that it was absolutely death to their academic career in their relationship with universities, to say nothing about government funding, for them to ever talk publicly about this. So there are people now in the Mensa crowd, in the scientific communities, who are now talking to each other about this, saying, wait a second, if the Defense Department is now acknowledging that these things are real, and they're acknowledging that the highest probability is that they're extraterrestrial, we need to be involved. Those of us in the scholastic community and in the scientific community need to be involved in this, and they are starting to talk among themselves now. So all of this stuff is boding well for this unveiling process to continue apace. And what we're doing is saying is that one of the other factors that I think is important is the citizenry ourselves saying, look, while all the effort is being made to get the different government institutions and media institutions and all of the other religious institutions and everybody to come forward as kind of representatives of the laity and the civilian population, the citizens ourselves have to get busy. Because the citizens reaching out to establish direct communication with the extraterrestrial civilization, I can tell you, starts to strike fear into all of these institutions because they're saying, like, wait a second, what if we lose control? What if the citizens themselves start participating in direct communication with the extraterrestrial beings? What happened to our major effort at restricting democracy to representative democracy? That means us as the representatives, they're saying, the educated elite, and the people in the CIA and in DARPA and in all of these major institutions who view themselves to be the ones in charge of making decisions rather than we citizens. So this coalition of citizens all coming together in whatever our respective walks of life happen to be, whether we're lobbyists in Washington like Steve, or like citizens like ourselves, or lawyers like me, or journalists, or people like Lou and Chris who've been in the government and are now outside of the government, people like Bassett and the other people, the CE5 people, all the people, or excuse me, and Stephen Greer, and all of the community. What we have to do is our whole citizens have to move together, everybody from their respective place in life, to push to get this to happen. And it includes reaching out to communicate with the extraterrestrial beings to basically say, very respectively, what the fuck are you guys up to? What is it that you're doing? What is it that you want? What is it that you want to tell us? How truthful is it of all the people that you've been having contact with, saying that you keep saying we've got to get rid of the nuclear weapons. We've got to get rid of the nuclear power stations that are generating all of this waste material that's threatening to destroy our entire environment. We've got to get rid of fossil fuels, so that we all have to do this.
And Danny, absolutely, we all have to do this. This is really why a citizens diplomacy initiative is crucial for a successful disclosure, because we have to show our representatives in Congress and at all levels that we demand this. And they need our support. They need to know, because they're worried about their jobs. They're representing us. And if we're sitting back and don't demand this, then they're going to take their direction from, lobbyists and other, other
corporations, military industrial complex.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's critically important that there be a citizens diplomacy initiative, and that part of that needs to be a constructive, serious think tank. I think we need to take a lesson from the think tanks that exist, the Heritage Foundation and the others that will remain
the Brookings Institution, the Hudson Institute. There are 42 think tanks that are all on the right end of the political spectrum, but the people in the middle has the Brookings Institution, but nothing else. And people on the progressive side of the political spectrum don't have any. Well, there's the Institute for Policy Studies. There's one. So what I'm saying, there's our community has to develop a really first-class think tank. This new paradigm institute to be able to come together, bring together the experts, bring together the scientists, bring together the researchers, get people talking to each other professionally and responsibly, unemotionally, not being protective of their own property or thinking that they've got the only answer, so that we really share the information that we have. But I think it's critical that in addition to the think tank and the kind of scholastic research that we need to do to try to develop a completely comprehensive new paradigm that integrates this new reality, we've got to have an active citizens movement reaching out directly to the extraterrestrial beings themselves, so that all of the representatives will say, wait a second, we've got to do a lot more than we've ever done before, or we're going to lose control here. The citizens themselves are taking over. The citizens are rising up, and democracy could break out here. So we've got to be able to demonstrate that democracy can be made real in this very special area. So that's why I think that both the New Paradigm Institute that we're talking about doing, this major think tank, is really critical, and the Citizens Initiative, the Citizens Diplomatic Initiative to establish contact with extraterrestrial beings directly. These are two extraordinarily important components that we all have to keep working on, and that we're going to be talking about in the event that's going to be coming up, that Mark is going to tell you a lot about.
Thank you, Danny.
Comment?
So, yeah. Did you want to say something, Steve?
I'd like to. I think the citizen engagement has two fundamental aspects. One is engaging in contact, CE5, CE6, whatever, and also engaging the government. Now, trying to engage ETs directly actually goes all the way back to the 50s, but it really starts to become significant around 1990. And that's when a much more formalized effort gets underway, which comes eventually to be known as CE5. And I think these efforts to go out and make contact with these beings is not a problem for the disclosure process by and large. It isn't. I haven't really seen it as interfering. So that should continue. It's great, and it's exciting, and it gives contactees who are maybe in the closet an opportunity to come out a little bit and get involved. So it's all good. Now, when we get to dealing with the government and contacting them, I would have just one thing I'd like to suggest. When I was a serious tennis player, I learned something that, this kind of sports like that, one-on-one, that I always carried with me, and that is the only thing worse than a bad loser is a bad winner. And so I'd like to mention that we're winning right now. And so if you're going to engage the government and let them know that, try not to rub it in and try to be positive. In other words, don't get them like, we're set up and we're angry, we're not going to take it anymore, and you're lying and you do this, and we want it now. But rather just approach them with the idea of, look, we are aware you're considering hearings. That's definitely the thing to do. We're so pleased that you took this report. We're pleased that you're commenting on it and things like that. In other words, be graceful in success here. We are going to win. So I would temper the way that people engage the government and go from that point of view. I
agree. I agree. I agree totally. We have to be graceful in victory here, and keep the victory coming. But the reaching out in good faith to the extraterrestrials, we don't have to say it's contemptuous because you other people in the government, you lost already. You haven't done. We don't have to say that at all. We just have to say that, whatever the drip is that you've been engaged in for the last 75 years, this kind of feathering in of this information. Okay, it's worked. Okay, we now get it. There's a critical mass of us that are convinced this is true. And the perfectly logical thing for us to do is to reach out and establish direct contact with the extraterrestrials. So that's what we're doing, and that we're going to keep on doing it, and we're hoping that you're going to be doing your constitutional duty as well. And we're going to keep encouraging you to do that. We're going to cheer you on. But we're definitely going to be doing this. We've discovered what democracy is all about. Congratulations. You have succeeded in training us to be good citizens. And so here we come.
And there's an ever-growing number of us who've already been doing this as part of the CE5 movement.
That's right.
And so this is already underway. And what I would like to see and what I'm passionate about is taking it to a whole new level. Mm-hmm. How do we organize in effective ways on a global level to meditate and to put out the Harrian call? We extend an invitation for you to show yourselves to the human family. And I think they will respond. In fact, I'm certain of it, but we have to reach some tipping point, some critical mass of coordinated effort. And along with that, show that we're responsible of this, that we have to remember there are still a majority of people who aren't aware of this issue, are just learning about the UFO, ET, UAP phenomenon. And so we have an obligation, I feel, as part of a citizens diplomacy initiative to help our brothers and sisters, to educate them. And that needs a lot of thought and careful thought on how to do that. But we can begin the process. And what this harmonic convergence meeting in August is really about is beginning that process. And so we have a 5-day event. I'm going to put up real quick a website. Let me just, this went live today. Please apologize. I apologize ahead of time here about how basic this website is, but this will be, this is makingcontact.com. This is the new official website for the event that we're doing in August. So we will be putting up more information here, but at least now you can sign up.
Penny.
So this was just put up today, and you can put in your first and last name and an email address, and we will be following up with more information to you about the tickets when they go on sale, which we anticipate will be sometime in the next 2 weeks, that will have the full speaker and panelist organized. And so we're just now getting this off the ground. But the goal here is to begin this dialogue. And it's going to take place in virtual space. I'm going to really quickly show you.
Give us the website, Mark, for the.
It's makingcontact.com, which, of course, is the same name as your book.
You have to pay you.
Thank you.
And Stephen will be there, and Danny and Alan and Jimmy Church. Sylvain will be there, and many other people. Richard Dolan has committed. Whitley Strieber will be there. We have already an amazing A-list roster of the who's who in this field, but what we're really attempting to do here is to bring other people from other fields that don't typically associate themselves with this phenomenon or discussing it openly. And those are the people that we hope are going to really make this special. And so, Danny, do you want to say anything else about that?
Sure. What I want to emphasize is that the structure of what we're going to be doing from August 18th to the 24th is trying to kind of help lift up kind of the professional quality of the study of what it is that we're talking about doing here, to understand that when like a lot of people have heard me say it before, but way back in November of 2009, the Roman Catholic Church convened a bunch of scientists over in Rome at the Castel Gandolfo outside of the Vatican, and after that long conference, the Catholic Church issued a formal statement on November 11th of 2009, saying that, look, now in light of the discovery of more and more of these new exoplanets, that we're now, it's clear that we're going to be discovering life elsewhere in the universe much quicker than had been previously anticipated, is how they put it. And that therefore the time has arrived for the citizenry and the laity to begin a very serious conversation of the philosophical and theological questions that are posed to our human family by the discovery of life elsewhere in the universe. Now, in my capacity as the former general counsel for the United States Jesuit Order in their social ministry office in Washington, D.C., I reached out immediately to Father Jose Gabriel Funes, the director of the Pontifical Observatory, who issued the public statement, and went to see him. And within 2 minutes, he acknowledged to me that, well, they're not talking about single cellular life somewhere between a frozen, planet in a distant star system. They're talking about another highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but categorically non-human other species right here in our own Milky Way galaxy. And that the time has arrived for us as people and citizens to start discussing the philosophical and theological implications of this. Now, as a lawyer and as the counsel in the office of the largest single denomination in the Catholic Church, the Jesuit Order, the largest order, I said, look, there's a lot more than just the philosophical and theological questions here. There's psychological questions, there's sociological questions, there's political questions that we have to come to grips with. And because everybody has spent so much time for the last 75 years trying to get at the question of whether these are real and whether these are extraterrestrial, that now that we're at that spot where we're crossing that all important line, the time has come for us as citizens to start engaging these fundamental questions. Because these are, I was astonished sitting in a meeting with the Defense Department with Lou Elizondo, with one of the main guys, and I said, all they kept wanting to talk about is, well, how fast these things went, what material were they made out of, how do they survive 600 Gs in these big turns. I said, wait a second, why aren't we talking about who's piloting these things, and where they come from and what their agenda is? And it was like they were astonished, like, well, that's kind of beyond our pay grade. But it can't be beyond the pay grade of our citizens. We've got to come to grips with these questions. And that's what this conference is going to be about. From August 18th to August 24th, we're going to have a panel every single day of leading researchers and experts in the field to start talking about raising up these fundamental questions of philosophy and theology and politics and sociology and psychology. We're starting to do the job that we've got to do in order to prepare for this major paradigm shift that has to take place within our human family. And that's what this conference is going to be the beginning of. Not spending all of our time arguing about whether they're real or whether they're extraterrestrial or what they're made of or how fast they go, or even how many people have had direct contact with them or not. That we're past that line now, that we've got to get out ahead of the power curve and start coming to grips with the fundamental questions. And that's what we're going to be doing.
Can I mention something, Mark?
Sure, please.
Yeah, I think this kind of activity is propitious for two reasons. One, particularly given I think disclosure is so close, to the extent that you can get these kinds of people together, you can get these ideas out there and form some structures, you're going to be able to move much faster in the post-disclosure world, where the competition for other people's worldview and attention is going to be rather intense. So that's a good thing. But the other reason is that I think that these kinds of activities are being observed by members, by people within the DoD and within other parts of the government, the military intelligence complex in general. They're aware of what's going on. And I think this kind of activity would be encouraging to those inside in terms of their providing internal support for cooperation at the levels we'd like to see, because it clearly demonstrates the degree of sophistication and the understanding and the citizen involvement. And that's a positive thing. And it takes some of the angst out of their deciding, should I get involved here? Should I stay back? And so it's very good and very timely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Steve. And this is really my passion, is to help our fellow man and woman come up to speed, to become more sophisticated and educated on this issue and the complexity of it, because it is complex. And so we need an institute that exists in cyberspace where people can come and begin their process of being engaged in the information and the education and the dialogue, and then ultimately how to get involved if they wish, at what levels, whether to become an activist or to just simply become a member or like a student of the Institute so that they can learn how to become an activist if they wish, or just, being, one of the people in their family that can share with other members of their family and friends what's going on, because this is going to be a big issue. And so we need to prepare people for this inevitability that we are going to make contact, and that, the question that I always struggle with is the thing I struggle with is, do I think that the American people and indeed the world community, the human family, would they trust a contact event initiated by one of the superpower governments after all the history of the disinformation and the lies and, some of the, tragic stories that have befallen individuals who have tried to bring light on this issue? I struggle with that. And so I think, like many of you here and most people in the world, they would not trust. They would think it's a deep fake. If there was a mass media event, that, the UFO lands on the White House lawn and out comes the president and shakes the hand. I mean, I don't think it's going to work that way. Not only do I don't think it's going to work that way, I think it's a non-starter. And that's why I believe so much in a citizens diplomacy initiative, that we have to do it. And the way it's going to unfold, first contact isn't going to be some, UFO landing at some UN location or, embassy established in some third world country by a private organization or a public organization. It's going to be a global event, the first reveal. I'm calling it the Great Reveal. What I think would work. And I'm not predicting anything. I'm just suggesting that what's going to be key to success here is that there be a movement that grows virally on a global level, and that this global community work together to bring about a big reveal event. And that big reveal is that there be points of light in the sky that make a pattern, that make it clear to everyone looking up at that moment that we're not alone. And then they go away, leaving us with the new reality, the new awareness that we're not alone. And
well, we just need to be careful of being too specific here. The strong personalities throughout our community have perceptions of how this might come about, and people are even moving to try to build embassies and stuff. There's all kinds of different ways to approach this thing. What we want to do is to bring everybody together at this New Paradigm Institute to talk about all of these things and try to get an understanding of how we can join together to undertake coalition effort to get these things to happen.
Right.
And you can see, I mean, Mark has a very high level of enthusiasm and a great sense of specificity as to how it might all come about. Others do too, and we all have to share these things. And Stephen, you got one more observation because we're running out of time here.
No, I just want to quickly add that look, there are projects happening all over the world right now. We don't even know about. There are projects going all over Hollywood in the film industry that you don't know about. I assure you, the gears are moving everywhere, and so we can't be certain how it's going to play out. We just know it's going to play out, and so we need to prepare as best we can for what role and what area we think we want to get involved in, and that will give us a bit of a head start. And I just want to add one more thing, and that's it. Danny's been working on the New Paradigm Institute for a very long time. It's well along the way. I know it's going to happen. But I said many years ago that my plan was, if disclosure takes place, I was going to convert Paradigm Research Group, funding, permitting, it really takes a decent amount of money, but I was going to convert it into a think tank, Paradigm Research Group, make it a think tank, nonprofit, expand the space where I'm at in the National Press Building and put it right there, 2 blocks from the White House. And so we'd have a think tank on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. But we need we're going to need a lot of think tanks to deal with the post-disclosure world.
That's right. So we got to get one going, a specific one where we can convene everybody. And Mark is gracious. Mark is going to be helping to provide all the technological knowledge we need to build this virtual New Paradigm Institute, so we can have extraordinarily high graphic qualities where everybody can come to be brought to the table together, to sit in a circle, to see each other out of the eyes of your own avatar, to see everybody sitting at the table and have this conversation just as close as can be to actual reality. In the quality of the graphics are going to be quantum leaps above this what you see right here, which is the observation deck stuff. But it's got all of the basics in here: the meeting rooms, the use of the screens to project live stuff on, the holodecks, all of this. And this is Mark's background, where he's had businesses in the past, to up the graphic quality of all of this, so it feels exactly like you're right in the room. And this is going to be, even though this will cost a lot, it's nowhere near like what it's going to cost to build an entire embassy and or even build out the entire castle that we've got up on Clear Lake. But we're going to do this in virtual space. And we're in the process of doing that right now.
Hey, you guys, I need to come in for a moment.
Yeah, we're running out of airtime. Yes.
Here it is.
Well, I just want to acknowledge, first of all, thank you, Steve and Danny, for the amazing work you've been doing for decades. And what an incredible time this is. I mean, we are so blessed that, wow. And I really want to encourage everybody to go back and watch the replay, because what everybody has shared, Mark, Steve, Danny, Sylvain, Alvin, it's all very important. And in a moment, we're going to bring Brother Cornflower on to play some music. And I want us to just integrate everything we've heard. And a couple of things that just really stand out for me that Steve said, hey, we're winning. We can leave where we've been for so long, which is angry at the government. You're not doing it. You're hiding bodies. And that's the mindset we've been in for so long. I really love Steve's suggestion that we leave that mindset. And then taking it on to the next step, however it plays out is how it'll play out. Maybe it'll play out in such a way that multiple people have multiple experiences, right? Remember when the sailing ships came over to the New World, some of the Indians saw them and some of the Indians didn't see them because they were outside of some of those people's ability to see it. So let's really embrace this as an extraordinarily exciting time. It's a very powerful transformational time. It's clearly tied in to the transformation of our world, which we all know needs to happen, and the transformation of humanity, which we all know needs to happen. And how lucky we are to be a part of it and to be connected to people like Mark and Steve and Danny and Alan and Sylvain, and who are at the forefront.